Hi everyone, happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of Painting at Home. I'm Jean Moss. I've got my coffee here and I am ready to paint today, and I hope you all are ready as well. I'm going to take a quick sip. Let's all just enjoy together. The nectar of the gods. Here we go. It's so wonderful to be back with you today. It's a very special Friday because today we're going to explore the forest. I love a good forest. Oh, I just enjoy photos and forests and all of it. I've never actually been to a forest, but I have indeed seen some photographs and books and on Google. So we're going to go ahead and just sort of take a little stab at it today. I've got my wonderful watercolors here, and I've also got my full briefcase here of just color and materials that we're going to use today to draw our forest. Now, the other day we explored the concept of abstract. So now our abstract was for the night sky. We're going to use a little bit of that today for our forest, but we are going to focus a lot on trees. And those of you who have been watching Painting at Home episodes know that I am just the biggest fan of trees. So I highly recommend going outside and seeing if you can find a tree today. I bet there's one around. So we're exploring the forest today. So I'm going to just start right off the bat by drawing very big trees. And we're just going to do some really wonderful vertical lines. For those of you who don't know what a forest really is, it's just a landmass full of trees. Another thing to explore in vertical lines, for those of you who don't know what vertical lines are, that just means up and down. That's all that means. So I've got my big brush here, and I'm just going to get started with a nice brown color. I am really going to explore my reds today. It is Friday, Forest Friday, if you will. And we're going to take a little bit of this red here, and then also some of this wonderful brown. And I'm just going to start right off the bat by drawing some big trunks. Just straight up and down lines. There's one of my trees. Oh, that's wonderful. I want to capture the vastness of a forest. So I'm going from low to high in this one. You can choose to go the other way, but what I want to capture is the height of trees, because from what I've read, trees are very tall. So let's go ahead back to that red and that brown. So I've drawn one tree trunk over here, and I'm going to draw another one. And I'm making this one a little bit lower. The reason is because I want to capture the depth. For those of you who don't know, depth just means further or closer from you. So we're doing trees today for our forest. And I'm going to call this, because this is sort of a reddish brown we're doing, and I'm going to call this maybe for my redwood. Maybe this is called, I don't know, the redwood forest. Maybe. I don't know. You can call your forest whatever you want to. I'm just inventing names here. So I've got a little bit of red and a little bit of brown. I've got two trees going, and I'm going to just go ahead and keep drawing trees. You know I love trees, and these are very tall trees. Very tall. We're going to explore some very warm colors today in our forest. I have just always dreamed of going to see a forest. I've never actually been to one, but I've certainly seen quite a few forests in books and on the internet. So here we're going to draw another big tree. Just very big trees, and I'm using my watercolor once again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let the water just kind of dry, and then we're going to explore textures with our various materials. These are very tall trees, so I'm just drawing them, and you'll see they're very thick, and this one I think is so darn tall that it's just going to go right off the page here. Oh, look at that. This is just turning out absolutely exquisitely. So I'm just dabbing my brush here. I'm going to stick with my brown and my red to create that sort of reddish wood that I want to capture on these trees in my forest. And I'm going to draw one more tree. This one's going to be a little skinnier, just straight up and down, straight up and down. Now, I've never actually seen any horizontal trees, but if you feel like maybe your trees are horizontal, play around with that. We're just going to play in this forest. Here's our forest, up and down. Oh, that's just gorgeous. Beautiful. I'm going to just sort of come back to these, and I'm just going to draw these trees all the way up, because I want to capture the idea that we are actually in this forest. That's just beautiful. Big trees. That's just wonderful. I do have a piece of tape there in the middle just to hold up my canvas. You can imagine maybe that's a hole or something for, I don't know, maybe a gerbil or, I don't know, some kind of coyote lives in our forest. I'm not really sure what lives in forests. I think I've read there are coyotes, but I'm not exactly sure. That would be something to maybe check out on Google. So I'm drawing my trees, everyone, and they're gonna go straight up and off the page because I've decided that my trees are very, very big trees. Very big indeed. Some of these maybe have some branches. So this is called Forest Friday, everybody. It's so good to see you on Friday. How's everybody doing today? Oh, it is just another wonderful Friday. I'm gonna make my tree have some branches. A little bit of life. It's wonderful. Maybe a little branch here. A little one here. Oh, there's our little hole. Maybe this branch goes behind a little bit. Look at that. This is just turning out so wonderfully. And we're just drawing some little branches here now off of our trees. Now, another thing, you always know I love a good girth. The bottom of my trees, I'm just going to draw a little bit of a base. Oh, that's just wonderful. And then in the background, now here's what we're going to do to play with depth. We have our red trees, our red wooded trees. For those of you just joining, welcome. This is Painting at Home and I am Jean Moss. Today we're exploring the forest. I just love being immersed in a forest in my imagination. I've never actually been to a forest, but I wonder what they might look like. And so today I'm going to just use my imagination. Now I'm going to take a little bit of brown and a little bit of black because what I want to capture are trees in the distance here. So there's one, and this is just a little bit darker, but I really want that to be just about a shade darker. So I'm going to capture a little bit of black and just draw up. Just draw up. As I said, I like to draw up because allegedly trees are quite tall. Now this one, since it's in the background, will actually get the full top. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that full top there. There's that full top. And let's do, because we're feeling extra crazy on this Friday, a little frisky on Friday, I like to say, we're going to draw another one of those. Here's one maybe a little further in the background, so it's going to be a little bit smaller, right? And still with a big girthy tree trunk, and then that rounded top. There's that rounded top, and I just do a little tiny circle, and let's cut that off at the bottom too. We're going to do a little bit of shading. Now for those of you joining us, we did do an abstract a couple of days back when we did our night sky. This is sort of a version on abstract, but just a little bit more what they call realism, which is to say more real. So you can do a little more abstract or a little more real, whatever you want to do. I got so many letters from the night sky just saying, oh, Jean, we didn't know that we could be that creative with our night sky. Thank you so much for giving us the tools we needed and the bravery to just think outside of the box. I'm going to use my smaller brush now, just rinsing it. Now my water today is a quite filthy brown, so I wouldn't recommend drinking this water. It is watercolor. Here we go. Now I've got a smaller brush, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw some textures on our trees because wood does have some texture. So I'm actually just going to do a little bit of just like a staccato. We've used that word before. It just means bloop, 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 staccato. It just means a tiny movement, right? And we're going to draw a little bit in the back, and I'm just going to capture a little bit more shadow on this tree. Oh, that's beautiful. There's a shadow. And maybe there's a little bird in that tree. Here we go. Little shadow. That's just stunning. I did not know how this was going to turn out, and so far I am thrilled. I am thrilled. I'm just drawing little blips because these are my trees in my forest. And when we get to the grass, I saw that there was a little bit of grass in the forest. Probably not much, but some. And we're just going to keep drawing those little textures. Let's get our branches there. This is my forest. Oh, I love that. I don't know if you can hear the movement of the music in the background, but oh, it is just guiding my hand today. A little movement. You can use that in your painting. Here we go. Just a little texture, little doodads in the trees. And let's get that branch. Oh, that's just wispy. Oh, wispy indeed. Look at that. Sometimes everybody, I don't know if this happens to you in your paintings, do you ever just stand back and go, wow, I had no idea. I do. Oh, I stare at them all the time and I just think, this was only in my brain a few minutes ago. So we're trying a little texture on our trees. I've got some black paint. That's wonderful. And let's get that back tree here. This is the one further in the background, and I'm just going to shade that rounded top. It's wonderful. And then get a little more of that girth in that trunk. I love a big girthy trunk. That's just terrific. So this is our forest, everybody, and now we're going to start to draw a little bit more of the landscape within the forest. Those of you just joining me, welcome. This is Painting at Home. I am Jean Moss, and today we're exploring the forest. As I said, the forest to me is a wonderful, magical place that I've actually never been to, but I'm using my imagination and I'm drawing the forest that I see in my mind. So I'm going to grab a little bit of that green and a little bit of that brown, and we're just going to start to shade in the bottom here. And I'm doing some broad staccato movements just to kind of blend everything. And today, because I'm just feeling so absolutely just inspired by this painting, I'm going to just maybe explore white space. Look at that. I'm catching the bottom because that water will run. So go ahead and just add a little extra paint, green, brown, and we're just adding here. And there's our ground. Look at that. This is turning out just beyond my imagination. Explore a little bit of that space and do a little blending. This is just terrific. Now, if any of you have ever seen a forest, let's see, that's my red. Let's not use red. I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to write in maybe some things that you've seen in the forest. As I said, I'm assuming there's wildlife. Probably a coyote. Maybe a couple of gerbils. I don't know. You pick whatever's in your forest. And I'm just coming back to that brownish sort of green color. And I'm going to just do a broad stroke here to capture that water. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm even going to blend. This creates a little bit of a mist underneath your trees. And we will draw a little bit of tumbleweed. But I'm going to just get this all the way in the background and just blend. We're just blending. And so far that blending is exactly what we want. And who knows how far that blending goes back. So there is our ground. How wonderful is that? I just love it. And now what we're going to do, because you know that I do love playing with multiple materials. We've been just doing watercolor, but I'm going to bust out one of these crayons here. I love Crayola crayons. Now this is a pine green, which, how perfect is that name for our forest? And what we're going to do is I really just want to capture some tumbleweed. And we're drawing them at the base of the trees just to create a little bit more of that mist. And I'm doing just a sort of a smaller circular movement. And what I love about the crayon in the watercolor is that it's a very subtle, just a very subtle texture change, right? So we're drawing this little tumbleweed. And you know what I even might do? I might explore rocks. Who knows what kind of rocks one might find in their forest, but we've got the tumbleweeds going. And now I'm gonna take my thinner brush, and I'm gonna just, you know what I'm gonna do? How about this? I have seen some wonderfully sparkly pictures of rocks of late. So we are gonna grab a little bit of our sparkle paint, and I have this fantastic, beautiful purple that I'm going to mix with my green and brown. Let's see what that does. If you have looked closely at a watercolor after using sparkle paint, you will see the glitter. It is absolutely effervescent. So let's go ahead and grab, I'm just going to fill in a little bit of that tumbleweed. Look at that. Oh, this is just turning out better than I ever could have expected. You never know, sometimes you just let your imagination run completely wild. And I might have a couple of these trees. I might add a little bit of tumbleweed. I'm grabbing that purple and that green brown. And I might draw a little bit of tumbleweed up into the tree. Look at that. This is just tumbleweed, and what it is it's providing a little bit of texture, but also a little bit of shading to the trees. It's just majestic, and I can see it as I'm looking back at it, and I am enthralled, simply enthralled. So I'm drawing a little bit of that texture just to capture the shading, and I'm drawing some of it upward, right? So, and then the last thing we're gonna have to do is fill in our sky. We get to decide what kind of sky we have today. But I am just creating a little bit of tumbleweed underneath the stumps of these big, girthy, and strong tree trunks. So much strength and girth. And they are just shooting through, penetrating the sky, I can imagine. Just absolutely piercing beautiful holes in the sky. Here we go. We're just drawing that little texture, that little tumbleweed that I've laid out with crayon. And when you look closely at it, it is a spectacle. It really is. That crayon inside of the watercolor, it really is a tremendous, tremendous aesthetic. So we are just grabbing a little bit of that. This is wonderful. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to explore sky. And because I am so enamored with the crayon behind the paint, I am going to begin with crayon. So let's explore what colors we have for our sky. I'm thinking a little bit of a magenta. I am seeing magenta to complement the red wood of what I have named my redwood forest because of the red wood. And the red is just drawing so beautifully. So I've chosen this wonderful, it's called Jazzberry Jam. I can't make this up, I cannot. And I'm just gonna start to do a little broad stroke in the back. And I'm doing a smaller sort of color because I'm gonna blend it later. I'm just gonna go ahead and blend that later. Here we go. All right, and we're just kind of coloring in, and I'm just absolutely, I can't, sometimes I just can't believe where ideas come from in the brain, specifically my brain. Sometimes I'm so surprised at what comes. So we're just doing a little like sort of color stroke. I'm gonna make sure I get behind the tree. And if you get a little bit of the crayon in your paint, not to matter because it's actually blending quite nicely. It's just really working out so beautifully. And I'm gonna come up and over this tree. And this tree, our trees don't have tops because the trees themselves are so tall that we are in the midst of the forest, right? We're just being hugged by these big girthy trees, just enveloped. And I'm gonna go all the way up. And I actually am enjoying that I'm using an upward coloring stroke because, again, we're getting that growth in those trees, right? They are growing, they are filling up with life, and they are penetrating our sky. And we're just coloring upwards. We're just about finished here with our sky. And then we're gonna blend it all together, and it's just gonna be absolutely magic. Absolute magic. Here we go. And we've got one more little side to do. And this is called Jazzberry Jam. I can't even get over the names of these colors sometimes. The creativity. Can you imagine being a crayon color namer? What an extraordinary job. Okay, here we go. And now, because I've laid down the crayon, now's the fun part. We're gonna take some of that fabulous watercolor and we're gonna just start to blend some of this. So I'm gonna take my larger brush. You can use a smaller brush, up to you. But I'm gonna take this, and I have the most wonderful red with a little bit of glitter, and what I'm gonna do is mix it with a little bit of purple and maybe a little bit of blue, because I feel like the sun is very bright in our sky. So we've got that glittery purple, that glittery red, and then, oh, I'm gonna grab a little bit of this blue. Let's see what happens, and we're just gonna blend. We're just gonna blend. It's a broad stroke, and I'm gonna blend even the tops of those trees. Look at that. It's a broad stroke, and it is turning out just absolutely better than I could have ever imagined. And you can use both sides of the brush. There we go. Let's grab a little more of that purple, and a little more of that red, oh, and just a taste of that blue. Just a taste. Oh, just terrific. We're just finishing up here. I hope you are all having a fantastic Friday. We are exploring the forest on this lovely Friday, a place I've never actually been, oh, but I think about. And this is just getting some of that abstract that we love. Here we go. Just a broad stroke. A little more of that purple. And we go back. I'm gonna grab a little bit more just beautiful. It is creating such an abstract, such an interesting texture to a forest. And we're blending. I'm going to grab some of that water from over here and we're just going to pull it. Just pull it right over. Look at how this is just turning out. It is magic. It is magic. I think this one's going to go right in the dog room. I think this one's a keeper. All right, here we go. Get so many people who say, Jean, where can I buy your paintings? Are you selling them? I am not. Because I want you to create your own work to hang in your house. Of course. And we're just finishing up blending here. And some of these trees have sort of faded into the background, and that's exactly perfect. The one thing I want to make sure, though, that we don't lose is in that background, we want that outline of that shadowed tree. It is kind of a misty tree in the back. And I'm going to grab just a little bit more of that brown, and we're just going to, oh yes, reiterate. And there's that beautiful, beautiful tree in the background. Oh, this is just gorgeous. And that tumbleweed and everything is just coming together so beautifully. We're just about finishing up here. Let's just grab that a little bit and just kind of shadow it in. Yes, beautiful. And one more time on the red. Perhaps you guys will get out to this weekend, all of you, and maybe find a forest. And who knows, maybe paint a picture. Maybe paint its picture. Or maybe just sit there and play a flute or who knows. Whatever you want to do. This has just turned out to be one of the most majestic paintings. I'm going to add one more final layer to this painting just to give it that extra red that I really want, and that is my special paint here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to texture just a little bit of texture in these redwoods, and it's a very light stroke, very light stroke. Oh wow, this is just exquisite. Now, this is a special kind of paint. It does normally go on fingernails, but I tell you, the texture of the paint is really special. And I'm going to just thin this out a little bit, carry some up. It's just a light texture. Oh boy, what a treat. What a treat. Look at that. What a treat. And I'm putting it on last because it probably won't blend as well with the watercolor. But you certainly can play around with it. Sky's the limit, as we've discovered many times this week. There we go. Oh, that is just terrific. Thin that out a little bit. And there we have it. We have our forest. Let's zoom in and take a peek, shall we? Sometimes things just absolutely turn out so much better than you could have ever imagined. And for me, this is one of those. Our rich color. And if you zoom in a little bit, you can see that back blended crayon. It's really special. I can already tell I'm going to have so much fun enjoying this painting. I cannot wait. One more quick glance. It's always fun to go into something and not know exactly what's going to come out of it, but you do your best just to be as creative as you can be. Let your mind run wild. Absolutely. Make sure you have your delicious coffee, and most of all, have a wonderful and safe, healthy weekend. Thank you all for joining us at another episode of Painting at Home. I am Jean Moss.